Like deep down, I knew that's who I wanted to be. I knew I had that potential in me. And so I made a commitment to my family, like literally right then there, I took Christy and it was like, this is my last ditch effort, right? Like this is it. And I knew that if I don't follow through on this commitment, she's going to take the kids and then we're going to have to figure out some other creative way to be co-parenting these kids. And I didn't want that. I really didn't want that, that's because I love my wife. I absolutely adore her, and I envision my life being with her. And so all of a sudden this was becoming very real, that vision and this thing that I wanted. And I, really was this path I was going down. This is not going that direction anymore. And I sat them down and I said, I'm going to go 1 year and I'm not going to drink 1 year because that's all I was willing to commit. I was like, I can just approve. I can do without alcohol for a year. And because I've done stints before, you guys know how that goes.
Because never again sounds so fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. It sounds so forever.
It does, right?
So I understand the 1 year logic. I get it.
Yeah. And I was giving myself a back door. And also in the past, I was just like, I can show you. It's got no influence over me. I can do with it or without it.
Right.
But I realized really quickly, after about a month in, because I started to share that with certain people that I'd made this commitment to go 1 year without drinking. So, because I was still getting the invitations to go show up. Everybody liked Fun Guy Dai. That was it. I'd get the invites all the time to go because I know we'd have fun and it'd be entertaining and whatever. And I started to show up sometimes. We're going to UFC one night with the boys, and I'm not drinking. Couple fights in, the conversation, I just really realized I was like, holy smokes, I can't connect with these guys. Like I felt like I wanted to go deeper with the conversation. I wanted to talk about some other stuff, but that was not going to happen, especially not in that situation. And so I started to really question my association. I started like, oh my gosh, well, who can I talk to about this stuff? And I realized I didn't really have anybody. And so I was barely functioning. I wanted to drink. I wanted to just fuck this. This is way too much work. The other way is so much easier and maybe not as fulfilling, but was easier. Right. And so that's sort of where it began. And then I realized I needed help. I found a psychologist. I went to some meetings. We got a relationships counselor so we could work on our communication. 2 meetings in, second session. She's like, Christy, I think it's better if Dai comes back on his own. And I was like, well, that's so much for couples therapy. I
got a lot of work to do on this guy.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because you talked about the masking of different emotions. It wasn't just, that avoidance. And that really stuck with me when you said that just a few minutes back. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know that.
It's hard, right?
It's
hard.
What was it that you were avoiding though?
Well, a lot of stuff, after I started to work with a psychologist and actually open up on some of these conversations, because I didn't have any resources or internal understanding of how to even start to explore some of these feelings that I had. I had no point of reference. You got to recognize up to that point in my life, first 30 years of my life, a lot of the guys that I would hang out with, we like to have fun. We'd smoke, we'd drink, we'd work hard, but we partied harder. And that was just the way we operated. And I didn't know anything else, but the conversations never really went deep. They never actually went to us sharing, what are we really struggling with right now?
Yeah.
And so what would happen is I'd often feel like no one understands me. No one will get me. No one knows what I'm working through or what the challenges I have. I really started, I isolate. Yeah. It's like I'm on my own island. So I'm not going to talk about my problems because no one will understand me anyways. And they'll probably just judge me. This was my belief. Yeah. And all of a sudden I started to open up because I was shown tools to start to explore some of the things that I was feeling. And some of the things that I was feeling was, am I adding value to other people's lives? I started questioning that. Am I a good dad? Am I a good man? Am I a good husband? These are all things. And I didn't actually want to give myself the space to explore the answer. And so that brought up emotions. And those are a lot of the emotions I was trying to escape. It was more so fear, not understanding, feeling like I was failing in everything. So it was easier just to drink and mask it.
Yeah.
then acknowledge that there is something there that needs to change if I want to change it. And I don't think I was ready to make a change, you know?
And you think there's a lot of that stigma still surrounding men? And I know that I felt it, but that we're supposed to be kind of wired to have this shield and, you know, not let these things out and just deal with everything, and let alone, okay, we'll go in and fix the problem. And there you go. Everything's good. I've done what I do as a man. I think that sits out there sometimes in the ethos of what it is to be a man. So I know personally it's a hard shift to getting more in tune with my emotions, which, boy, it's definitely helped that desire to not drink anymore.
Yes. And that's the key, right? Like, as soon as you sort of clear your mind of these distractions or you know, tools to help us avoid things, right? As soon as you start to remove those, or at least put them aside, you know, things do come into focus pretty quickly, but it's usually focusing on the things that we're lacking. You know, like that was what became front and center for me, is like, I'm lacking in a lot of these areas, and I feel like less than, you know, less value. And you know, a lot of it comes down to that self-perception side of things. Like, who do we see when we look in the mirror? And right down to that very basic things. Like, do I like me? You know, and if I'm perfectly honest with you guys, I didn't like me outside of my professional life. I had a lot of great stuff going on. From the outside looking in, people would be like, wow, beautiful family. It looks like you have a great relationship. Like, yeah, I was very good at living an Instagram lifestyle.
Sure.
You know, highly curated. And I felt fake, you know, and I didn't know how to really try to be who I wanted to be. And that's a scary place. Like, I talked to a lot of guys about this stuff, and, you know, I eventually found other men that were feeling similarly, and they wanted to create space where we can just share what's going on, what's raw and real for us right now, you know, like alive and real right now. And so I started connecting with other men that were open to those conversations, not for coaching, not for mentorship even, but actually for just listening and being heard.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think back, guys, to your own experiences and those moments where, you know, maybe you weren't living as your best version, and you think about some of the conversations, some of the actions that were happening, but you think about the association, like, were we ever shown any other way of doing things?
No.
Right.
No, most certainly not. Coming from a family of addiction, no. So
that just raises a question. Well, when we find ourselves there, like, I mean, what do we do? Right? Like, how do we break that cycle? How do we get out of it? And I think each of us have similar stories, but different, right? Different experiences that led to that, different backgrounds that led to that. But at the end of the day, we're all wanting more. We're wanting more for ourselves. We want to actually live a life that allows us, as they say, follow our bliss. You know, if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell, like, he wrote The Hero's Journey, and it's super interesting. We're all on this hero's journey, right? We're all on this path, and we learn stuff. We're challenged by stuff. I mean, that's life. I mean, we can't, you know, expect to live life without a challenge. I mean, they come at us, and we work through them, or we work around them, and we often adapt. I mean, this has been going on for millennia. You know, like, human beings are very resilient, but man, we have a way of complicating things.